All right, welcome back to episode 8 of the More Doors podcast. Today, we have a special guest on. This gentleman has been investing over the past 9 years, has built a portfolio of close to $175 million, and that's close to 1,150 units. So he's done that in less than 10 years, guys. You're going to want to check out this episode right now. So we're going to get started currently right now.
Can we say it right now one more time?
Yeah, I didn't like that part. All right, welcome back to episode 8 of the More Doors podcast. We're excited with this special guest that we have on. Look, today's show is brought to you by our favorite sponsors. It's the only sponsors you should really know, and that's Deep Blue Capital. Go to deepbluere.com. Look, if you're looking for a asset firm, if you're looking for a company that knows how to help protect your money, help grow your wealth, maybe you need some tax strategy planning. I know, I'm going to tell you right now, I do.
I still have to do mine.
Oof. Yeah.
I'm still waiting on my...
October's coming so quickly.
Yeah.
Still waiting on your K1s?
No, the K1s always go out on time. I'm just waiting on one of my LLC returns to get them. Okay. We put it on extension, and then to Brian's point, we forget about it until like 2 days before.
We have one mutual business partner who is just notorious for it. He'll just file it. K1s are coming so late every year. Just file your extension.
Just file the extensions, which, look, we don't do that here at Deep Blue. So go to deepbluere.com, sign up for the newsletter, see what kind of projects that we're analyzing, that we're investing in, and then just reach out to us. We'll offer up a free consultation. That way we can walk you through the strategies of what we're seeing here to help grow your wealth, grow your passive income, and help you offload some of those taxes that you're getting burdened with. And then today's show is also brought to you by Tor Studios. Go to torstudios.com. If you want to create a show like this, maybe you're an aspiring investor and you just need to get your message out. Jesse Showalter, our producer, will make you look good. If he can make me look good, he'll make you look good. So, all right, guys, today's show. Welcome back. I wasn't here last week.
No,
you weren't, and it felt very empty and cold.
It did.
Yeah.
Actually, Jesse wasn't here either. I was running the board, which I should not ever be back there again.
You did a good job.
I think so. I think
we'll see.
I know. Yes, I did notice like 1 or 2 times I did my old habit where you're just talking for a long time and you don't realize the camera is on somebody else because you're also part of the show.
Yeah.
I did that maybe twice.
So if you're going to leave us a review,
don't look at last week's episode.
Don't look at episode 7.
No, I'm just kidding. Last week's episode was awesome.
Yeah.
Like
so
Sam Silverman was fantastic.
Yeah, so listen.
He had a lot of great advice.
Yeah, I love that. And then you can go to our Deep Blue YouTube channel, subscribe to that. But I'm excited about this one. So we've got Tony Castronovo on, and he is the founder of Nova Multifamily Group.
I think it's Novo.
Novo?
Yes. And when you're Italian, you got to pronounce the O pretty hard.
But I'm not Italian.
I know, but he is.
Well,
so
we'll let him
much
pronounce
respect.
It. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to pretend I'm Italian. So it's Novo.
I'm going to remind you said that one day.
Yeah. Novo Multifamily Group. And they've been investing. They're a real estate investment and asset management company that focuses on repositioning multifamily apartment communities. And if you listen to this title that we had at the beginning of the show, in less than 10 years, he has grown to have a portfolio of close to $175 million. That's close to 1,150 units. So he's doing something right.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's bring Tony on. I'd love for Tony to share his background. How did he get started in this? Did he start in single family? Did he just come out of college and say, you know what, I just want to get in real estate investing?
Yes.
Yeah. So Tony, welcome.
Welcome, brother.
All right. Thank you. And I appreciate Matt's comment about being Italian. So definitely pronounce the O. Yeah, Castronovo means
that's it.
Novo,
Castronovo.
Multifamily Group.
I mean, honest, do you see Tony's picture? I mean, that's straight out of the Goodfellas lineup.
That's true.
I mean,
we won't make that mistake twice.
Yeah.
You only get the freebie once.
Yeah. So I mean, but you're Italian too, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. So Tony, welcome. If you could just just for our guests and our audience that are listening, and they're gonna, if they're anything like me, when I listen to a guest, I always go immediately start Googling them and researching them. Maybe go on their Facebook just to make sure they're legit. Walk us through your background.
Yeah. Well, I'll start at least in the real estate space, which began in 2014. Like a lot of people, I got the real estate bug. I was like, it'd be kind of cool to maybe do this on the side. So I ended up buying my first single family property, became a landlord, and that went pretty well. And that led to 2, which led to 8, and a little bit of flipping in between there. And I did that for about 4 years before I got really comfortable with a process and a system and repeatability. And so my next challenge was, okay, how do I scale? Yeah. And I just couldn't see going one property at a time. So I started really getting educated on the multifamily space. And in 2018, I pivoted 100%. So I packaged up my single family portfolio. I did a 1031 exchange into my first multifamily, which I categorize as what's called an IRO, which stands for Independent Real Estate Owned, which means I opened my checkbook to buy it. I don't necessarily advise that. A lot of pain that went with that, but the good thing was I had 100% of the profits, but also 100% of the headaches. Yeah. But then within a year, I really started getting educated on other options such as syndication. And in 2019, did my first syndication. It was me and a balance sheet partner. And that just kind of kicked things off for me. And I've done a total of 9 multifamily deals since then. And like you said, about 1,150 units. In fact, we just closed on a deal this week. So that got me to 1,150. Yeah.
Nice. We'd definitely love to circle back with you on that, Tony, talk about that deal specifically. But one of the things that we mentioned in our initial episode a couple of months ago was we really wanted to speak to people out there that maybe have a W-2 and they're looking to build up their passive income, or have a W-2 and see themselves having a future in real estate and want to kind of shake off the W-2 handcuffs and go into full-time entrepreneurialism. You were a big shot at Ernst Young for a while doing PPM projects, right?
So the second half is correct. Yes, PPM. I don't know. I was a big shot.
Come on.
Yeah.
He's so humble. On top of being successful,
exactly.
He's so humble.
I did work for Ernst Young for a number of years and really had a 25-year management consulting background, working for different consulting companies, some big, some small. I did leave Ernst Young in January of 2021, and I took a chance on a smaller consulting company for a few months to join their executive team. We won't go too far into that, other than it was still a company trying to come out of the relics of the COVID issues that we all dealt with, and had a very difficult time doing that. And so that just served as a catalyst for me. In September of 2021, I left that company and decided I was just going to go full-time into my business, which I'd been doing as a side hustle for a number of years. And I haven't looked back, but I'll tell you, I learned a ton, and we can unpack some of that, but that was the start of being full-time in real estate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we should really just dive in and start there, because that's, I think, one of the main focuses not only of this episode, but as of this show is, our avatar, our audience. If you're listening to this, you're probably asking the question, I'm interested in real estate investing, or I am a real estate investor. How do I just do that?
Yeah.
Full
Right?
time.
Yeah.
Full time.
Like,
right.
how do I do that?
You get some deals, and Tony, you mentioned it, right? So you went from buying some single family, and you started calculating those numbers. You probably were like, all right, I probably need to own how many single family properties would you have had to own for it to make sense for you to stop working?
Oh man, I mean, I guess if you're just looking at cash flow, I mean, on average, those properties were probably cash flowing anywhere between $250 and $400 a month, which is not a lot, right?
Yeah.
I was forcing appreciation. I was building wealth, equity in the properties. Had, if your listeners are familiar with Bigger Pockets, the Burr model, I was doing the Burr model, but man, cash flow wise, I would have needed quite a few units. But I'll tell you this. Here's one thing that I think holds people back is a lot of folks say, I want to replace my W-2 income with my passive income. And I don't know that I agree with that, because if you're doing well in your job, you're constantly getting raises and bonuses and promotions, and you're just chasing your tail. So look at your expenses. What do you need? What do you want? What is your lifestyle? And design kind of backwards, reverse engineer what kind of income you need to be able to support that.
Right. I think, and that's such great. Nick and I talk about this endlessly, and I think that you can probably resonate with this, right? I think there are a lot of people that see real estate investing as a way to replace their W-2 income, and like that is their goal, when the reality is, it's like, why do you want to replace your W-2 income? Is it because you really don't like your W-2 job? Because you should find a different one regardless, right? Like whether or not you replace that with real estate or whatever. Like we talk about the rat race a lot and getting out of it. And I don't want to get too deep on like the existential part of this, right? But like if your goal with real estate investing is to get out of a job that you hate, real estate investing is very hard for a long time too, right? So you should just start looking at what else you need to be doing to just get up in the morning and do something you like every day.
Yeah.
By the way, to make $250,000 a year, just off of the cash flow, Tony, that's 833 properties.
Yeah.
That's netting $300 a month.
Yeah.
And so, to get to 833, that takes a lot of down payment. That takes a lot of work to get there. And then that also doesn't say how much of a nightmare that could be when it comes to evictions, when it comes to make-readies. And so...
And then there's like also the trade. Single-family investors talk about this a lot, and Tony just mentioned it before, and it is true, right? You're also forcing appreciation, because you're calculating your total return on a single family investment property, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got cash flow, principal pay down, and then forced appreciation. But you can't have your cake and eat it too, because if you're forcing appreciation, you only realize that gain if you sell the property. Mm-hmm. If you sell the property, now you're moving backwards in your cash flow.
Right.
So you can't have both, right? That is a large number to be able to replace.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Tony, go ahead.
If I could jump in on that, I mean, I think, like we're saying, it's the total picture. If you just look at cash flow alone, then it's a long road, and one bad tenant can ruin a year's worth of cash flow, in an instant. But if you also look at the big picture of the equity that you're building, I took a chance when back in 2014 when I started. I didn't have a lot of cash sitting in my bank account just to start investing in properties. So I cashed out my 401k, and I paid the penalty, I paid the taxes, and whatever was left over, I had to go and bet on me and make it happen. And within 2 years, I got to par. And then in 2 more years, I doubled what was in my 401k.
Wow.
Nice.
So it did work out for me. And I don't necessarily advise everybody to go out and cash out their 401k, but it comes down to, are you going to be a real estate investor? You're going to be a real estate entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's
I
huge.
wanted to be an entrepreneur.
It's not this is I relate. So I've been you'll learn this about me, everybody. Like though when we do these shows, I've been a boxer my whole life, so I equate a lot of things to like that type of deal. And I think real estate investing is a very similar way. Where like you don't play boxing. There's no like recreational league for boxing, right? Like you could play rec league soccer where you like don't do it as hard and it's not as competitive. You can't like half punch someone in the face. There's not a recreational form of it. It's kind of the same with real estate investing. You're either going to be a real estate entrepreneur. If it's going to be something you dabble in, you're going to get dabble in results, and eventually you're going to get punched in the face really hard too.
Yep.
So betting on yourself, I think, is the only way. You got to make that decision at some
Agreed.
point,
Tony, what did it take for you to change that mindset, right? So you're having a very successful career at EY and working with some great clients and some other consultancies. But you just said something really important, right? You made the choice to bet on yourself. So what ducks did you need to have in a row, or what vision did you need to set for yourself, or what mindset did you need to change in order to get that confidence to make this, to pull the plug and go off on your own?
Yeah, good question. I think part of it comes down to your appetite for risk. And I don't want to say I burned the bridges or burn the boats. I did make a conscious choice to take my side hustle and just go for it. And I gave myself a bit of a timeline. I said, here's 12 months. If I've got 12 months to be able to make this happen and have money in the bank to be able to invest and grow and so forth. If after 12 months I was living under a bridge, I told my wife I would go find another job. But that gave me at least a timeline to work with. And then, I think when you go off on your own, you really have to think about the role that you want to play and what you're good at, what you're passionate about. And for me, coming from a place like Ernst Young, the most important thing was the people, working with teams. When you become an entrepreneur and you quit your job and you're off doing this thing called real estate, I mean, are you working with a team anymore? You could be, but if you go out and you're buying single family homes, maybe you're more working by yourself. So I wanted to be part of a team. I wanted to surround myself with people that were going to help me continue to grow professionally, personally. And so syndication continued to be a good model for me because I could be in partnerships with teams that were all very high caliber, fast growing people that were going to keep pushing me to grow and learn. And so that was something I kind of designed in the back of my mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's so crucial too. And then I think that's, such good advice is that we often talk about, just this one size fits all ideology around just going headfirst into real estate, just building it. But it's you're starting a business like anything else. In the beginning, that is a job, right? And so if you're not going to be passionate about it and you're not going to be in your groove, as it were, right, then it's going to be very, very difficult. So you have to find out or really identify what is it that's going to give you energy, everything. I'm very similar to Tony. Nick and I talk about this all the time. I don't like working alone. I honestly don't even care what we're building. I use the t-shirt factory example all the time. I don't care if we're selling real estate or selling t-shirts. I want to work with people that I like, that give me energy, and that help me get up, and work hard every single day because I like what we're doing together.
So to that point, Brian and Tony, I like what you said. Do you want to be a real estate entrepreneur or real estate investor, right? And this show speaks to probably aspiring. They're probably real estate investors. Maybe they want to get investing, but they're probably thinking they're wanting to aspire to that real estate entrepreneurial type, right? So as you sold everything in 2018 and went into the multifamily, I mean, doing syndication and even buying a multifamily property, it's scary, is it not?
Yeah, I mean. I never forget the day we closed on the first multifamily. It was my birthday, which was kind of cool. I gave myself a little birthday present. But it was such an exciting time because it was my first multifamily. The seller was 82 years old. I invited him to the closing. The closing was in an office at the bank. It was a local small bank. The president was there in the meeting room with us where we were closing. My broker came in, my property manager came in. There was like a whole group of people. My wife, came in. I mean, it was like a party. And then when we're all done, my wife and I drive over to the property and we're in the parking lot. We're like, oh my God, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously we knew what to do, but it was just like, wow, okay, here we go.
It's real now.
Yep. Yeah. Tony, how big was your first multifamily deal?
It was 20 units. Yeah. And we've since gone full cycle on it. We exited that in 2021. It was a 3-year hold, about a 31% IRR. Yeah, super successful property for us. And
is that because you 1031'd it and were you unlevered on that property?
So we actually did a partial 1031. That was a whole other learning experience. But
Yeah.
I got to say, things like CapEx. Okay, so my lender gave us 80% loan to cost, but which was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, the rehab budget was a lot more than 20% of the loan, and a lot of surprises that we uncovered. We ended up spending, gosh, $330,000, and that purchase price was only about $980,000. So
Wow. Okay.
I mean, that was pretty substantial.
Nice.
17,000.
So I think there's two quick takeaways for everyone listening so far, right? Number one, Tony's journey from deciding he wanted to be in real estate through exiting the W-2 was a 7-year journey, right? So people talk about this concept of an overnight success. Tony was a 7-year overnight success,
exactly.
Right? The other thing is he started off with single families, right? Built up some units, made the decision to move into multifamily, liquidated the single families, and used that equity to go full bore into multifamily, taking his first deal down by himself. So, like those key ingredients, right? The time, the snowball effect, right? I was very much the same way, starting off with a handful of single families before moving into multifamily. But like there's a path there. So for those folks that are like, I got to do this today, good things take time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And money.
Here's a funny little story. So when I bought my first single family, my boss had said, "Hey, that's pretty cool. That's an interesting hobby you got there." Okay, I'm kind of running that for a little bit, and then after I bought like 2 or 3, we had another conversation, and he said, "Okay, are you sure you have the time for this?" And okay, got past that. Now I'm up to like 8 properties, and he's like, "Look, this is a big distraction. I think you're more passionate about real estate than consulting. Where you're going with this?" And so I started to get kind of real with him and, talk to him about my vision, my journey. And as soon as I bought that first multifamily, he was like, "Look, I think I want to start investing with you. Can you make me rich?" And to this day, he's one of my best investors. He's invested in a number of my multifamily deals. And so the takeaway from that is a couple of things. One is at some point you got to just really be committed to it and just make it visible. I know that's scary to talk to your boss or your coworkers about what you're doing, but at some point you just have to do that. And once you do that, people want to jump on that journey with you. They want to follow you. They want to learn from you. And at some point, if you do end up going and being, say, a general partner in a deal, maybe do a syndication of your own, they just might be investors of yours. Sure. So if you're in a W-2, you are in a wealth of network and contacts, and you need to be working those.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something that the three of us talk about a lot, right? So I'm in tech sales. I've been in tech sales now for 13 years. Nick and Brian been in real estate sales for a really long time. And when you socialize and associate with your networks within those communities, there's without a doubt, inevitably, somebody raises their hand and says, "Tell me more about what you're doing." Or, "Hey, I just saw that latest LinkedIn post." Or, "Hey, I heard through the grapevine you just closed on another deal. How do I get involved in the next one?" Right? And it goes back to what Tony said before about building a team. It's not just building a team and being part of a great team. It's about building a great network.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that is a really important part of this and kind of segues into another question. So, Tony, you and I met through the Jake and Gino Coaching program, which to me has been, really, really valuable and impactful on my career, my real estate career. Why did you choose Jake and Gino, and what's it done for you?
So for about a year before I even considered a mentoring program, I just shadowed some guys, and there were some local folks from actually the Brad Sumrock program. And they were doing monthly meetups, and I had a high respect for them, and I was following them for about a year. And that kind of got me thinking, look, in order to do what they're doing and grow faster, bigger, develop more relationships and partnerships, I think I need to join a program like this. And what was holding me back was they're expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And I could take that money and I could go put it into a deal. I think just about anybody who's joined a mentorship program has probably gone through that scenario.
Right.
But I said, you know what, let me start vetting some of these groups. And I reached out to a number, Michael Blanc, Jake Gino, Brad Sumrock, Rod Cleve. What got me interested in Jake and Gino was the culture, really, that they don't necessarily care whether you're buying a 300-unit apartment complex or maybe you're buying a fourplex. Or, I mean, obviously they have what they do in their business, and it is focused primarily on multifamily, but so many entrepreneurs have joined the program that bring this diversification and wealth of experience in everything from short-term rentals to single family to, asset management, capital raising, all the different disciplines that go with this. And everybody's just so down to earth and wanting to help each other that I thought that's a family that I need to be a part of. And I say that word family, that's really what it's become.
Yep, agreed.
And as you were going through that, Tony, I mean, the Jake and Gino and the rest of the programs you mentioned, they're not cheap, right? And so for someone who's aspiring to that, and maybe they don't have the money to do so, what kind of resources would you advise, so that they can continue to educate themselves and start moving towards that path of being able to join one of those programs?
I think there's no reason why they can't join local meetups, and a lot of them, most of them are free. And you're gonna, just like I did for a year, I was shadowing these guys. I was soaking up everything. I'm sitting in the back of the room taking photos of all their slides. I mean, and I built my own underwriting model from slides of just seeing, the numbers, and I was making sure I tied back everything, and and I vetted it a number of times, but I had to put in the work. I had to see for myself how to put all this stuff together. And that's mostly free education. And Matt, I know you and I chatted a little bit offline, but I actually, and here's maybe a tip for some folks, if you don't find a meetup somewhere, then create one. Yeah. And that's what I did in a suburb of Houston called Katy, Texas. I just decided there wasn't something local that was serving the investors and entrepreneurs and multifamily in our area. And so me and a couple of partners decided just to go ahead and launch our own. And it's been wildly successful. And now that I've relocated to the Park City, Utah area, I plan to kick that off here sometime this year in kind of Park City, Salt Lake area.
I love it.
Are you going to have us out to your Park City, Utah meetup?
I want to do more. I want to have more retreat style type of masterminds. So I
think I saw another guy in the group just put something like that together a couple of weeks ago. So yes, you should definitely do that. Wait till the snow comes down in the mountains, and then you got 3 guys here that are at the very least attentive as of now.
Yeah. You know what I do love? What I do love is he didn't say yes.
You saw that, right? He dodged the question.
You
asked. Let's see how the rest of the interview goes before you get the invite.
Exactly. Yeah, is that the Italian in him? He didn't say yes. So Tony, so you've been. I mean, you worked through that first 20 unit you bought, 900 something thousand, right? And as you've moved along this journey, you've been a part of some big deals, correct?
Yeah, and that's surrounding yourself with people and building relationships. And I'll be honest, my first month working with the Jake and Gino team, I went to one of their conferences. I met a partner in a breakout, just, kind of chatting over coffee. He invited me to a deal. That was a 396 unit property, and I helped bring capital to that. I'm part of the asset management team. And that kind of launched me from, at that point, 80 units to, over 400. Wow. And then literally within a couple of months after closing on that deal, I got the next one because there was a couple of partners that were in that deal that had another property that they were acquiring. So I got invited to that one. And it just literally kept going. Every 2 to 4 months, I would get involved in another property.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing, and we joked about this, right? And every time I've bought a property, I bought a second one within 90 days, right? Because you're out there, you're doing the work, you're talking to brokers, you're talking to banks, you're putting the word out in your network, you're starting to put out seeds for raising capital, and then you close that deal, and somebody inevitably calls a few weeks later saying, "Are you still looking for deals? Do you still have any more money?" We're like, "Yes." Yeah. And here's another one.
So Tony, let's walk us through that, right? So that first was a 20 units. That was your first one. You're like, holy smokes! You and your wife are like, all right, what do we do? Even though you said you knew what you were going to do, but that's that initial shock. Then you go to a 400 unit, a larger purchase one. Would you, for our listeners, someone who's thinking on a 900,000 scale to a $40 million purchase scale, in the grand scheme of things, are they all the same in terms of how the process and formula works?
Yeah. So generally speaking, but there was actually a property in between there. So I had the 20 unit, which was just me opening my checkbook. The next property a year later was a 60 unit, and that was my first syndication because I wanted to try the syndication route. I didn't want to overextend myself. I didn't really understand everything to know about syndication. So that's where I reached out to mentors and colleagues, and I had somebody that I trusted that was a little ahead of me on the multifamily side of things, had done a lot of syndications, and so I brought him on as a general partner, mostly as a balance sheet partner or a KP to sign on the loan. And I basically became the asset manager. I raised all the capital. I basically ran that deal. And that gave me a ton of experience working with investors and operating a syndication. And that's the experience I took into the 396 unit deal.
Nice.
So that first 60 unit, what was that raise?
That was a $1.4 million raise.
And how did that, I mean, compared to your first one, when you wrote the checkbook versus that one, what was that same, because now you're using other people's money, did you have that same fear, or was it a greater kind of, I hate to use the word fear, but that's usually what I am always fearful, because I'm always
reservations, concerns, right?
Yeah, because I'm always wanting to, I protect other people's money better than I protect my own.
Sure.
So how did that, walk us through your mindset on that? Your very first one, you brought in a great mentor, which you've mentioned several times. And, when it was you and your wife on your first deal, it's your money. You can screw up on that one a little bit. You don't have to answer to anybody other than your wife, which maybe she's scarier than the investors.
Well, the door is still cracked open, so but yes, maybe like you said, we don't know what the right word is. It wasn't fear, but it was definitely concern, and stewardship probably is a good word. So I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't even know if 100 or 1.4 million was a large raise or not a very large raise. I had no idea. I just knew that's the capital I needed to be able to get that deal done. And it was amazing when literally I did the webinar, and within 24 hours that evening, actually, my first $100,000 investor came in, and I was just blown away. Like, holy crap, are you kidding me? Like, this is happening. And that immediately was, well, okay, I just upped my level of responsibility. And of course they took that very seriously. And I over communicated on everything. I mean, we were doing monthly reports to the investors that included a deep dive into the financials. We were doing quarterly calls where it was very interactive. I was bringing people out on the property, doing tours. We did group tours. We did individual tours. It was extremely transparent. And I wanted to do that because I knew I was still in the trust building phase. And frankly, that's just my mindset anyway. I roll up my sleeves. I like to be hands-on with all my properties. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how we ran it.
Nice. Wow. So Tony, I think when you think about the multifamily business, and it is a business, right? It requires a lot of skills and strengths, right? You have sourcing deals, underwriting. You mentioned asset management. There's negotiations, legal, capital raising. And what areas do you find yourself gravitating most towards, and why is that?
So on that first syndication, I took on pretty much every role. And even the first property before that, I took on every role but capital raising, since I didn't have to do that. And I'm a process guy, so I like the operations, but I got to admit it was beating me down a little bit. Even though you hire property management, just being so involved in a lot of the details, it would beat me up.
Sure.
And so it just didn't fit my personality anymore. And so when I got a taste of raising capital, I knew that was something that really got me juiced up. You know, we talked earlier about what's going to excite you, get you out of bed, and so forth, and not just the raising capital part, but working with investors and educating them and informing them and so forth, and seeing them get excited. That was really what got me jazzed up. And I know this is cliche, but I've really embraced the difference between capital attraction and capital raising. Yes, I raise capital, right? I get into a deal, it's a transaction, I need to bring in capital, so we're raising capital.
Right.
But as far as my role, I view my role as capital attraction because it's a different mindset. It means that when I wake up every day, even if I'm in a deal and I need to bring capital into a deal, I'm already thinking 2 or 3 deals ahead. I'm thinking about all the things I need to do, the seeds I need to be planting to be able to bring in capital for the future.
Sure.
Right? So that just makes you take on different activities that maybe don't give you immediate short-term results.
I mean, that is just such a good point, right? And I think that that's something that anyone looking to get into the syndication space or to grow their portfolio, and it has anything to do with raising capital and doing bigger deals, you're only in capital raising mode when you're raising money for a deal.
Right.
But you should always be in capital attraction mode.
Yep.
That's just building your network, right? That's such good advice.
Yep. So Tony, you know, I love this is a great topic. So when you're in capital attraction mode, what does that mean to you tactically?
I literally have calls each week where I share deals with newer investors that are past deals. And we'll do education. We'll just step through the deal. What does it look like? How does it work? What are the returns, going to look like if they were to invest in a deal like that? What can they expect, once we take it over, et cetera, et cetera. And it's an investment on my part because I get nothing short-term out of it. I'm spending the time to educate them. But I think it's just part of doing this is I'm looking to bring education, and I realize that not everybody is at the point of wanting to pull the trigger and make an investment into a deal. But here's a little sidebar to that. In the deal that I just closed this week, 2 of my investors, no exaggeration, 26 years in the making. Okay.
Wow.
I met each of them 26 years ago in different capacities, and they've followed my journey, and they were kind of silent about it. And at some point they started reaching out saying, I want to learn more. And I nurtured that. And now I'm able to kind of sow the benefits there. But
That's awesome.
You gotta just think that way.
It's one of those things. That's such a great.
That's a definition of persistence.
It
Right
really,
there.
well, 100%. And one, it is, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Tony, but it's very similar in Nick and I run residential real estate sales teams, as well, and so much of building a residential real estate sales business is your network, it's your relationships, it's your sphere of influence, it's things like that, and it seems so arbitrary that you need to always be in relationship mode, right? Like we have a rule around here on our residential team that your goal is to make 5 new friends every week. You do that, you're just always going to have relationships. And then you get into this space where when things start to really happen for you and you're building a lot of momentum and you're getting a lot of deals done, it almost feels like you're getting lucky. Like all of a sudden, like, where are all these deals coming from? Like, well, you're actually doing the work, and doing the work is just building the relationships. We think about, you can think about capital raising in the same way. Are you a capital raiser who basically you're going to go try to get a deal, and then as soon as you get it, you're going to go into sheer panic mode and just start having to manually lead generate and pick up the phone and call everybody you know to get the money done before the closing date? Or are you always going to have a mindset, I need to build relationships and I need to bring something of value, right? I need to be educating and I need to be contributing. And then whenever you're actually needing to raise capital, it almost feels like you're just, why do all these people want to invest? Like, it feels so easy. Well, you've been doing the work the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. There's something, guys. There's something like on the coaching front. I coach businesses as well as entrepreneurs. When I coach businesses, we talk about marketing a lot, and there's something called the buyer's journey. What most people in selling, buying and selling, they think is that everybody they come into contact with is ready to buy what they're selling today, when in fact the data tells us that there's only 1 to 3% of people who are actually ready to buy today.
Wow.
And you can convert that and say invest today. Okay. So what do you do with the rest of the 97 and 99%? They're on a buyer's journey. And so that buyer's journey might start with, they need to get educated on what is this that you're even pitching. Okay. So that's where the education comes in on multifamily syndication and how it works and so forth. Then they need to get past all the objections they have of why they shouldn't do this. And there's always tons of that. There's lots of fear. Once they get past that, then they're going to look at, should I even do business with Tony or Brian or Matt? They have to look at competitors and see, well, maybe they have something better, right? So once they're finally past all of that, that's when they're actually ready to do something. And if you're only working with people you think are at that last stage, you've just wasted, a whole bunch of contacts that could have been investors or buyers along the journey at some point.
That's right. Like what you do in between the deals is more important than the deals themselves, I think.
Yes.
Right. And something Tony just said, like, so I'm a career sales guy, right? And I talk about pipeline coverage to my teams all the time. So if I'm looking at a 90-day forecast, I want to see the fact that we have 3 times pipeline coverage, because we're going to end up closing a third of that. And and that totally aligns to what Tony just said. On 1 out of every 3 people will buy or invest.
Yeah.
Right.
Tony, as we're now post COVID, and
Careful. Are we? Don't jinx us.
the government officially ended it.
Oh, did they?
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely over.
So I'm allowed to. Yeah. We're not going to get shadow banned now. Government ended it. So now that we're post this and interest rates are going up, or they are up. Inflation's up, and we've had this massive run up from during COVID. How has your strategies and tactics shifted? Now that we're in kind of this emerging market that we're in.
I don't know that strategy has shifted too much. I think underwriting, certainly you got to stick to what works and makes sense in your underwriting. And it's not that you can't do a deal because interest rates are high. You just have to make sure everything else is in line, the price and, the equity and everything that goes with that. Now, what makes it a little bit more challenging these days is not only do we have high interest rates, but you've got lower LTVs, so you're getting less proceeds from your loan, which means you got higher equity, which means that you got to have a great deal. Otherwise, you don't have returns. People get diluted pretty quick if you're bringing in too much equity. So there's a lot of challenges there. And frankly, even bringing in a lot of equity is a challenge by itself, because people think recession and they're parking their money on the sidelines. And that's a risk that a sponsor is going to take to try to syndicate a deal like that. So there's a whole lot of dynamics at play there. And all that to just say that I'm being extremely selective about deals that I'm taking on, and we're not going to overpay. We're going to stick to our guns on the metrics that work and our underwriting. And I've seen deals come back around a number of times, even a year later, comes off the market, back on the market.
Yeah.
So stick with it.
I think that's huge, especially because, there was a deal flow drought for so long, it felt like, and now that deal flow is back, a lot of people that were on the sidelines are just so anxious to get a deal done now that it can be very, very enticing to stretch your boundaries on your underwriting or go a little bit too high and stuff. And, patience is a virtue in that regard for sure.
Agreed.
What markets are you looking in? What are there any particular cities or states?
So my core markets have always been Houston, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City for a variety of reasons. I have done deals in DFW. We've got our deal in Waco, so I've had College Station, so some surrounding areas. But right now I try to stick with those 3 core markets.
Nice.
Love it. What attracts you to this is very specific, but Oklahoma City specifically is, obviously it's in a different state than Texas, and the whole 35 corridor makes sense. What attracts you to the OKC market?
There's a number of things about OKC. I'll start with the personal side, and this is always something I love, is I like buying assets near my kids. And
sure.
I've got a kid that goes to OU. And so every time I visit the property, it's a business expense.
There you go.
Right, and I get to see him. So there's that. By the way, I got another kid I think you guys know in Waco at Baylor University. So that's a little bit of a personal strategy. I couldn't convince anybody to go to A&M, so I exited. But anyway, other things about OKC. When you start looking at almost diversification of the type of offerings you offer to your investors, the OKC market is a little bit more of a better yield market.
Sure.
A little higher cash flows, maybe not as much of a wealth play. So you're not going to necessarily see huge returns on sale, but just depends on what asset class you get into.
Sure.
But you can get your price per door a little bit more attractive, so your raises are a little smaller. It's just easier to get deals done there. But OKC is a very strong market. I mean, one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. They've seen a number of employers, come in. It's very diversified with the kind of industries that are there. Oklahoma in general is a very landlord-friendly state.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get political here, but I do like to invest in red states. So
sure. That makes perfect sense.
Nice.
Yeah,
so Tony, you mentioned the coaching program before. So again, just kind of the next step in the journey, right? So W-2, start real estate investing, 7 years, you leave the W-2, you go full bore into multifamily real estate, then you start the coaching business. So Grit to Growth, I believe, is the name of the coaching program.
Yeah, Grit to Growth. And let me just take you back a little bit. I won't go too far back here, but why did I even start it? Here's a lesson learned of going full on, quitting the job and going into real estate. I was super excited, and I got into that one deal right about the time I left my job. And then, the deals just kept coming, and here I am, I'm investing in all these deals. And all of a sudden I started looking at my bank account going, wait a minute, I'm putting money in all these deals. And where's the income? I mean, you guys know cash flow takes a while to be able to, once you stabilize a property. So you're not necessarily living off of cash flow on any of these properties day one. And so that kind of hit me, and I was like, wait a minute, if I want to keep investing in multifamily deals, I still have to be able to provide income and live and put food on the table. So how do I do all of this without a job? And so I went through a little bit of an exercise that, for those that have read the book from Jake and Gino called The Honeybee, I'd like to call it the Honeybee exercise, which is nothing more than exploring multiple streams of income. And you should do that anyway. whether you have a W-2 or not. You should always look at, having other streams of income that you can rely on for whatever reason. And so I kind of built a framework around this, and basically it's an opportunity to brainstorm all the things that you're passionate about. You kind of rate yourself on your level of excitement and passion, things that you have skills and experience for, things that maybe have a lower time commitment because you don't necessarily want to just buy a job, if you will. And then scalability. Is it something that you can grow over time, or does it just stop when you stop? And so I went through this exercise, and what percolated to the top was a theme around coaching, consulting, training, etc. And so I looked at that and I said, okay, I'm gonna jump into coaching. I'm gonna start a business around this and augment what I do in the real estate space with a passion, which is around coaching entrepreneurs and leveraging my management consulting experience. I also added an experienced business owner track to my coaching program. So I immersed myself in a certification program for about 9 months. I was working multiple hours a week on that certification, just tons and tons of hours of education and experience coaching people. And I got that certification. I launched my business. I've since taken on several clients and working them through different stages of where they're at. And so entrepreneurs, typically, it's a lot of people focused on maybe leaving that W-2 job, or maybe once they do, how do they work through all those ups and downs and challenges that they're going to face as they're building their business. If they've already established a business and have an experienced, or if they're an experienced business owner, that is where I take them from where they're at to another level. And so that's where I can really take them through a very structured, methodical program that I have on a number of business strategies that every week we work on, and I hold them accountable. And it's something that can drive additional revenues and reduce costs in their business to ultimately impact their profitability.
I love that. And everything about what you just said really resonates with me. One of the things that I was thinking about, though, is it sounds to me like you found a way to leverage the skills and the domain in which you had expertise as a management consultant and figured out how to apply that into your entrepreneurial journey, right? So my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've worked at some big tech companies. They bring in a big consultancy when you have a business problem, or we needed to make some sort of process improvement, or implement a key piece of software, or grow our marketing, penetration by X percent. And you bring in the EY or a McKinsey or one of these other big consultancies, and they help with that. And they start with asking tough questions, right? And figuring out what the problem is or what the goal is, and then setting them up on a roadmap to success. It sounds to me, Tony, provided I'm not completely off base here, is that you took 25 years worth of doing that in your W-2 and figured out a way to create your own brand and monetize it to supplement your multifamily journey.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll say this. Coaching and consulting are two different things. Even mentoring is a little different. Mentoring says, look what I've done. You should do it this way, and you'll get similar success, right? Consulting says, okay, you have a business problem or a personal problem, and I have this experience, and I'm going to basically come in with my agenda and give you a process to follow, and you'll get this result. Coaching says, well, Matt, you already have the answer. You know the answer to this problem. My job as a coach is to help you surface it and then hold you accountable to an action plan to resolve it, together. That's the kind of partnership in coaching that makes a big difference. And whether you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, that's my role, is to hold you accountable to it.
Nice. What kind of businesses, or what fields are the businesses that you find yourself partnering with people on?
It's really all over the map. Everything from telecom to, of course, real estate. I've worked with, COOs and executives down to people who are really early on in their career ladder. I think on the real estate side, one thing we hadn't quite mentioned is I came up with another stream, another honeybee, if you will, which was I realized that being a sponsor or general partner in a number of real estate deals, each of them is a business. It's a P&L. And so I spent a lot of time looking at financial statements and getting deep into financial analysis of a lot of these deals. And so that's a skill set that I now bring to the space of fractional CFO. So I am a fractional CFO specifically in the real estate space. I work with flippers, wholesalers, multifamily, single family, land, short-term rentals, you name it. And that's something that kind of a more financial perspective of being a coach is how I help them.
Wow. So you got the coaching business, you got the fractional CFO, and then you're also an author. So tell us about the book.
Yeah, so the book is called Crush It, and Crush It basically outlines a number of business strategies that I incorporate into my business coaching practice. And I'm actually working on the second edition of the book now. I've been conducting some interviews with folks that might help me validate across different industries some of the different business strategies. But it really covers everything from cost cutting to bundling, upsell, downsell, drip campaigns, something that we call market dominating position, some things that you can get immediate impacts for, and I've applied it even in my own business. That even like something called a squeeze page is really going to help you drive conversions for your leads, and you can see some immediate results. Capture feedback into a drip campaign that you can start to nurture your leads with. So there's a number of different strategies that I help business owners with, but I even start with my business owners on things like scheduling freedom, financial awareness. There's a lot of business owners out there that don't have a financial background and maybe feel overwhelmed that they don't have the time to even dedicate to coaching. Yeah. That's my initial pushback that I get is, Tony, I don't have, maybe 3 to 5 hours a week to dedicate to myself and my growth. And so that's where I start, is helping them find that time and prioritize that time.
Love it. Tony, first off, thank you for joining us. This has been packed full of information. I just started taking notes on your profile here, and you had some great nuggets dropped. There's two things. How do people find you? And then you are willing, for our listeners, you're willing to offer an item of value to them. So where do people find you, and what is that offer that you're willing to offer our listeners?
Yeah, of course. So we talked about multiple businesses. We started with Novo Multifamily Group. That's my real estate business. So you can always find me at my email address, Tony, Tony, at Novo. Let's get the spelling right. Novo. Multifamilygroup.com, all one word. So that's the best way to reach me. I'll also provide my Grit to Growth email address that you can drop in the show notes. And the offer that I'll make here is for any of your listeners, they can reach out to me and just mention that they heard me on Deep Blue, and I'll provide 20% off any coaching package. If you're an experienced business owner, I will provide you a free business assessment. It'll take about 90 minutes, and most times when I do an assessment, I'm able to help business owners find $100,000 or more in recurring annual revenue.
Boom.
I love it. Tony, thank you so much. And just to recap that, when you connect with Tony and you want that free, that offer, just make sure that you mentioned that you heard him on the More Doors podcast and mentioned Deep Blue. So you're also going to go to deepbluere.com, sign up for our newsletter there. And you also want to go listen to our past shows. So episode 6, it kind of goes into what Tony started and what we've all kind of started. It's that episode 6 was single family versus multifamily, the real estate rumble.
Oh,
that was a good one. That was
a good one.
That's kind of that what we went on this journey today with Tony and ourselves is starting out single family, but then into multifamily, and which one's the better option. Yeah. So go check out episode 6, episode 7 with Sam.
Coming soon.
Coming soon, because I need to listen to that one. I was not here.
It was great.
Yeah, I'll leave a review.
You should.
Yeah.
Subscribe, please.
Subscribe on our YouTube channel. It's the More Doors. So More Doors podcast on YouTube. We're all over social media: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube,
Insta.
Are we on Insta? I did not say Insta just because I did not know.
exists.
I got
Yeah.
something from there yesterday.
Okay.
I think it was you actually.
All right.
Was it?
Yeah, something about seller financing. You said. It's okay.
Might be a,
But anyway.
it might be a scam.
It might be.
You should sign
I didn't.
up.
I didn't click on it.
Yeah,
I
click
promise.
on it.
No,
I'll send you more.
No.
Yeah.
Tony, you've been a great guest, man. Thank you so much. It's been great to getting to know you over the last couple of years. Your journey's been phenomenal. I love to see all the success that you're having, and more importantly, like Tony, you're living your own dream, right? So I know you had the Airbnb in Park City, and you just relocated from Houston to Park City. So you're like writing your life's chapters one at a time, and it's been a really, really exciting story to watch unfold, and can't wait to see what's next for you.
What's the temperature out there today?
Oh my God. I'm not going to lie. In the evenings and the mornings, you almost need to have a jacket on.
Yeah.
Almost.
It's July.
Almost. It's going to be 103 today.
That's okay. We're all sitting here with shirts on and no shorts,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Yeah. That's our normal style.
Exactly.
Tony, thank you so much. Go reach out to him. You want to take him up on those
Yeah.
offers, the either the business, the free business consulting, or the 20% off, and then buy his book, Crush It, and we'll have to have you back on when we hit episode 100.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll
Sounds exciting, guys.
you'll probably be a billionaire by then.
Ooh,
Let's hope so.
like
Yeah.
it.
All
All right. Tony, thanks very much for the time.
Appreciate it, man.
See you all next week.
Good luck.
Bye, y'all.